Things that go bump in the night. Many years ago, when I was working as a full-time record producer, I also used to co-produce with various people, and one person I co-produced with for quite a while was a chap called Chris. He was extremely successful, and he had his own studio in Salisbury, right in the middle of the Wiltshire countryside, sort of in a clearing in a forest, is the only way I can describe it, on the edge of a village. I used to go down there and spend my working week down there, basically. Sort of go down there on a Monday morning and probably come home sort of Friday night, Saturday morning. We would work extremely long hours. We were very busy and very successful. So it wasn't unheard of for us to do sort of 14, 16-hour days sometimes to get projects done on time and on budget as well, which I was quite pleased about. The months went by and a lot of projects were taking place. And there was one night, we finished at about, 3 o'clock in the morning, I think. We'd started at 10, so we were pretty exhausted by 3 o'clock. And we decided to call it a night, so we trundled off to bed. Now, the thing I need to let you know about is the kind of the layout of the studio. The house was kind of like a 6-bedroom sort of Georgian mansion, I suppose, is the only way to describe it, that was set in sort of 5 acres of pasture land. It had a paddock behind it and large gardens at the front as well. I think it was about a 1-acre garden at the front with a long gravel drive leading up to it. And then to the left of the house was the studio. Now that was built in the style of a stable block. It was a purpose-built, it was a new build, but built like a stable block. So you had the studio at the back, running across the entire length of the building, and then coming off it in 2 sort of long sections were the sort of the kitchen, bathroom and lounge area, and then you had 3 to 4 bedrooms on the left-hand side. And then beyond that was just forest, basically, a bit of a fence and then sort of just dark forest. I never thought anything of this, I just thought it was a beautiful setting. I went to bed that night and drifted off to sleep pretty quickly. Now, I awoke at about 4:30, 4:45 in the morning. It was kind of like autumn time, so it wasn't light, although it was starting to get light. But the reason I awoke was I heard a sound, and it was like a bang, thud against the door. Now the doors were sort of pretty much all glass sort of patio affairs with blinds on them. So when there was the bang on the door, I could hear the blinds rattling as well. I was initially quite alarmed because I didn't know what was happening. So I waited with my eyes open in the dark, as you do when you hear a sound. You know what it's like. You wake up, you sort of think to yourself, did I hear that? Did I dream it? I need to hear it again just to make sure. And sure enough, I heard it again, and by now I was wide awake. So I thought, well, what am I going to do? I'm going to have to investigate somehow. But, we watch horror films, we sort of think, well, why did that person just get up and go and do that? That's ridiculous. You just wouldn't do that. You just run. And the thing is, I had nowhere to run. The only way out of the room was the door, and that was where the noise was coming from. So I didn't have a choice. I was petrified, I'll admit to you. I was absolutely petrified. I didn't know what to do. So I thought, well, I have very limited choice here. I can either hide under the bed, which is not going to achieve anything, or I can go and investigate and see what's going on. So I decided to get out of bed. I slipped into my trainers, just my underpants on, into my trainers, was heading towards the door and thought, oh no, I'll just put a t-shirt on. Why I thought a t-shirt was going to help or improve the situation, I don't know. But there you go, t-shirt, underpants and just trainers. It's a look. And as I approached the door, I was thinking, this could be the end, It wasn't a case of being courageous or brave, it was just a case of facing the inevitable. I had no idea what was out there, but I knew something was making a huge noise. And then it happened again. the huge noise. Now, it had got a little bit lighter, so I could see a shadow outside the door through the blinds, and it just frightened the living daylights out of me. It was a huge head. I mean, it was a sort of triangular head with sort of pointy bits at the top, and it was just moving into the door and banging into the door. And I thought, for a split second, I thought this is some sort of practical joke. Maybe the keyboard player or someone has just sort of decided to hang like something in front of the door and just try to scare me. But that soon passed because it happened again, and actually this shape was kind of moving towards the door, banging into it, and then moving away. And I thought, well, I need to open the door. So I did. I opened the door and thought, whatever's going to happen to me is going to happen to me. I've had a good life. I just have to face this head on. So I stepped outside. My eyes were sort of a little bit shut because I didn't know what was going to happen. And when I got outside, the most amazing sight. A young horse. Really, a young horse, about 2 years old. I don't know a lot about horses. But it wasn't like mahoosive. It was a young horse, and it saw me, and it was absolutely beautiful. It was kind of like a light tan colour, a bit like me, really, but with a white sort of stripe down its nose, and beautiful, clear brown eyes, and it just looked at me, and then just sort of bowed its head a little bit, and then took a few steps back. And what did I say? I said, hello. Standing there in my t-shirt, underpants and my trainers in the morning mist with this young horse, I just said, hello. And it started to walk towards the front garden, so I walked with it. And when I got to the front garden, there I found 4 other young horses. There was a beautiful black, I don't know if it was a stallion or not, could have been a mare, but a beautiful black young horse. There was a kind of like a grey and another dark brown one. Those sort of dark browns ones. You see them, when you go racing and what have you, really shiny and dark. And there were these 4 horses, obviously without the men from the apocalypse, just the 4 horses. And there I was, stood in the garden with these horses, trying to figure out what on earth was going on. I was still waking up, trying to make sense of everything. And as I was looking at them, they all started to very gently walk towards me, and I started to panic a little bit. But they walked towards me with their heads bent down quite low. And apparently, I know from sort of horsey people that this is a friendly gesture. And as they were walking towards me, Chris came out of the main house and stood on the steps by the kitchen doors. He obviously had a kind of like a panic wardrobe situation, because all he could find was his wife's pink dressing gown. So he stood there in his wife's bright pink dressing gown. It was quite flowing in the morning breeze, and he had his slippers on as well. And he's looking at me and quizzically, and I looked at him and said, all I could say was, horses. So he tied up the dressing gown and came sort of flip-flopping down the stairs, and he said, let's just get them into the back, the paddock at the back. So we started to round them up gently. We didn't have to be sort of forceful with them or anything. They were so lovely. They just wanted, I think they just wanted human companionship in that morning. They felt a bit lost, I think. So we walked them through the paddock, got to the gate. I opened the gate, and then Chris sort of shooed them through and led them into the back paddock where they remained. And we closed the gates, and then sort of decided that we'd find out a bit later, where these horses had come from. Turns out that they came from a farm about half a mile up the road. So they travelled, they walked down a fair bit in the morning at dawn. And apparently what happened is that there were some thieves who were trying to steal them and kind of got discovered or something, I'm not sure. Maybe they got spooked and didn't quite get them into the van. And then just drove off because they lost their bottle. And of course these young horses were just left where they were, so they just wandered. and wandered into Chris's front garden. So that ended up with this bizarre sight of 4 young horses and myself dressed the way I was, and Chris in the pink dressing gown, and the two of us sort of having to be sort of pretend cowboys for half an hour or so. However, after that episode, I sort of thought that, I think I'm going to remain an Indian. It's probably safer. But I never forget that incident to this day, because it's the first time I was kind of like up close and personal with a horse in the most bizarre circumstances and in the most bizarre outfit. And that is an absolutely true story. Don't forget to subscribe if you like what's going on the channel, and I will see you soon.